OK です。
こんにちは。私の名前はあかりです。Hello, I'm Akari. I'm teaching Japanese online from 2013, and I'm also online tour guide in Kyoto from 2016. And today I like to interview my friend Akira-san. But before I start interviewing Akira, I want to explain about this podcast. I wanted to make this podcast because I'm teaching Japanese from 2013 and I met amazing people through teaching Japanese. I taught about 600 people so far, and some of them are, I mean, most of them are amazing people, but some of them are visited Japan. I met them in face to face, and some of them learning Japanese is not for just learning languages, but also learning Japanese changed their life. So I want to interview how learning Japanese or how learning new language changed their life, and I want to hear about their journey. That's the purpose of this podcast. So today I want to interview Akira-san. So welcome, Akira-san. Thank you for coming.
はい。
じゃあ、アキラさん、could you introduce yourself in English and Japanese both?
はい。私の名前は中井明です。日系です。カリフォルニアで住んでいます。えっと、最近3ヶ月間、京都でいました。ああえっと、ドキュメンタリー作ります。あ言語やアイデンティティについてドキュメンタリー作ります。My name is, well, Japanese name is Akira Nakai. In the US, I go by Fox Nakai. And I'm Nikkei of Japanese diaspora and recently spent about 3 months in Kyoto, which is where my father's from. And I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I focus on stories about language and mixed race identity.
Thank you so much. So, where should we start? I mean, first of all, you have a root in Japan, but
うん、
your your dad is from Kyoto, Japan, and
う
your
ん、
mom is from Mexico, right?
はい。
But when did you start learning Japanese?
So I first started learning Japanese when I was really young. I mean, when I was a toddler, my dad would, use Japanese greetings, the tadaima, okaeri,
Mm,
itadakimasu, the
mm,
kind of basic greetings.
mm,
And when I was in middle school, I took about 2 years
mm,
of actually, I don't think it was middle school. I think it was elementary school. I was in Japanese Saturday school for about 2 years.
mm,
Um, and those classes are on Saturday mornings. And so that's like the absolute worst time to get to place a kid in additional courses.
mm,
And so after 2 years, I stopped going. And during that time, I just learned the basic kana and sentence structure and was starting to learn kanji.
mm,
Um, and it wasn't until community college that I took another intro to Japanese course. And then after I graduated from college, I took, this would have been quite a few years after I graduated from college, I think uh, starting in 2019. I basically started taking a variety of Japanese courses,
mm,
community college and Japan Society,
mm,
various Japanese or Japanese courses for adults, students, italki tutoring, which is where we met,
mm.
independent studies, and yeah, for the last so it's been on and off kind of
Mm.
throughout my life, but I would say for the last 5 years I've been studying pretty consistently.
Mm. So, when you were a child, of course, your parents put you to the school, but after you became adults, especially these 5 years, what made you want to study so hard?
So, mm, this is a question. Should I go into the wind phone?
Yes,
Okay.
maybe your life story
Okay.
related to this, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, because I can tell it
Mm,
as I conceptualize it as a film. So,
mm,
so I heard about the wind phone, Kaze no Denwa.
mm,
In 2010, there was this farmer in rural Japan who suddenly lost his cousin to cancer, and he was so distraught over the loss that he placed a phone booth on his front yard and went into it and called his cousin and told him all the things that he wished he had said when he was alive.
mm,
And then 1 year later, there was these, earthquakes and tsunamis in Japan, and all of a sudden, a lot of people were lost. And at some point, somebody was like, I've heard that there's this guy out in the countryside that has this wind phone that you can use to call the departed. And so a lot of people, first around Japan and then around the world, started going to this guy's wind phone and making these pilgrimages to say the things that they never said to the people that they wish they had when they had the chance. Um, these wind phones have since gone on to spread around the world. I've read and I've even seen a few of them in various places, like I've seen them on farms in California. I've seen, there was one in the city I'm in, Oakland. There was one after a fire and a lot of artists were lost. Um, and yeah, so it kind of became this interesting, kind of like art movement. And the original one though is in Japan. It's in Iwate. And I thought it touched on this interesting universal experience that a lot of people seem to have, that we lose someone and then we realize that we didn't say the things that we wish we had when we had the chance. And so that's the wind phone. And kind of where my story comes into this is about 5 years ago, I started thinking about wanting a closer emotional connection with my father, who's the one from Kyoto. And he never really spoke fluent English. He was always very like basic, very basic conversational small talk level. Because when he immigrated to California, he was working for a Japanese company, and all of his customers were Japanese, and so he just didn't have to learn English until later on in his life, and even then it was very basic. And so yeah, him and I, because when I was younger, the schools at that time said it was bad for the children to learn multiple languages because it would confuse the children. And so parents were recommended just to teach the kid English. And so because of that, I had these memories of speaking Japanese with my father when I was a toddler, but pretty much after that, it was English only. And because he didn't really speak very much English, we had this language barrier. And so we could have small talk, but even then there was constant misunderstandings. And so I realized that in order to have a closer emotional connection with my father, I would need to learn his language because he wasn't trying to learn English anytime soon. So I I set out with the goal to someday have a full conversation with my dad in Japanese. And by having that goal, I can be in these classes and I can, call him up and it's kind of an excuse to talk to him and be like, oh, I have this test on, TEF form. Can you help me practice this form or this vocab? And that would be kind of a way to practice talking to him. And so that way, by the time we get to the point where I can have a full conversation with him in Japanese, we would have had enough practice, even separate of the language. We would have had enough practice talking to each other to have that emotional connection. And so Japanese was kind of like that vehicle to get us there. Um, and and yeah, so that's when I started learning Japanese. That was about 5 years ago. But then in 2020, he suddenly passed away. And for the last for the last 4 years, I've continued studying Japanese. But other than like italki and like teachers online. I don't really have there's not a ton of Japanese speakers
Mm-hmm.
around me in my real like my physical life,
Mm-hmm.
and so essentially for the last 4 years I've been continuing to learn this language with this question of what is the value of a language if there's no one to speak it with, and so uh, until this past year. That I decided to go to the Wind Phone in Iwate to have
Mm-hmm.
one final conversation with my dad in full Japanese. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I was in Japan starting last October.
Mm. So I guess you originally you're planning to come to Japan earlier, but pandemic happened, so you extended, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Originally, I had planned to come to Japan in 2020. I had actually told my job that I was leaving, and I hired my replacement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the week after was the shelter in place orders, and so I do have Japanese. I'm a dual citizen, and so
Mm-hmm.
I could have technically gone into Japan, but because everybody like uh it was right at the start of the pandemic. So in general, people were, staying inside and not going to events, not making new friends. Um, and so even though I could legally go to Japan, if everybody's staying inside and nothing's happening, it felt like I wouldn't really gain very much out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I postponed the trip for a little while, and then yeah, life continued to happen and get busy, and it became harder to kind of pause my life and go to Japan in the way that I had originally planned,
Mm-hmm.
until this past year that I decided to just do it.
Yeah, I think it was a good idea because like 2020 to 2022,
Hmm.
store closed earlier, bar closed earlier, and people
Hmm.
are not walking around and there's no meetup event. So I think your decision was correct.
Hmm.
Mm. But I think probably we met around 2020. You take my lesson and we met. And at that time, I know your background, but I didn't know the purpose much.
Hmm.
But it was so funny because only last autumn, so only 5 months ago or so,
Hmm.
you suddenly contacted my uh, take my took my lesson again, and you started to talk about your dad and wind phone and this kind of story. And I remember when you talk about your story, it makes me cry. Like, and then you said, I'm coming next month or something. So I said, oh, you're coming to Japan and autumn. Autumn is one of the peak season.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I was wondering, can you get a good accommodation or not because it's too sudden. But
Mm-hmm.
you arrived in Japan later, and then, I mean, 2024 autumn, and then first place you went was Iwate, right?
Hmm. Yep, for the wind phone.
So you tell us about the experience in Iwate?
Yeah, so I went to Iwate at the end of October.
Mm,
The film that I'm working on about this language learning journey, it's about mixed race identity, and so the language in the story, it's following me as I learn Japanese to connect with my father.
mm,
But I realized early on that to learn my father's language without learning my mom's language would be ignoring half of the story. And so
mm,
I committed to learning both languages. My mom is
mm,
from Mexico,
mm,
and so the story is about learning Japanese,
mm,
but the container or like the form of the film, if you think of like the narration and the voiceover,
mm,
those are in Spanglish, which is what I'm using to represent my mother, who speaks
mm,
English and Spanish, and Spanglish being
mm,
a symbol for mixed race identity.
mm,
Um, and so yeah, I was learning both Japanese and Spanish slash Spanglish, and so the reason why I came in October was because to have this final conversation with my dad through the wind phone. I wanted to have it specifically on Dia de los Muertos, which is Mexican Day of the Dead, similar to Obon,
mm.
and so that's why I was there in October.
I see,
Um,
I see.
yeah.
And you show me the photo, but it seems nobody there, and you had a quiet time by yourself at the
Yeah.
window?
Yeah. So the town is super small,
Mm,
Otsuchi. It's a town that's just two buildings.
mm,
Uh there's a motel,
mm,
like an inn, and then
mm,
there's a restaurant across the street.
mm,
There's a couple more hotels down the street, but in general, it's a very small town.
mm,
Um, and yeah, it takes like I think like 6 or 7 hours to get there from Tokyo.
mm,
There's a couple trains and buses that need to be taken. And yeah, there was no one there. I think on the first day I might have seen somebody leaving,
mm,
but I'm unsure. They could have been coming back from somewhere else.
mm,
But yeah, I because this is also a film, I spent the first 4 days there just looking at the wind phone from sunrise to sunset to get an idea of what the lighting conditions would be at different times of the day
mm,
and how I wanted to frame the shot and all of that. So yeah, I spent 4 days there practicing the shot, and then on the Day of the Dead, I had the actual conversation.
mm,
And yeah, so I was basically there for about a week. And during that time, I was also in communication with you
mm,
because yeah, you were giving me advice about Kyoto, where I knew I'd be spending the majority of my 3 months since
mm,
I wanted to connect more with the place that my dad was from. And
mm,
so yeah, during that time, I was telling you a little bit more about the reason why I was in Japan, and you offered to help me practice a lot of the conversation that I was planning to have at the wind phone to make sure
mm.
that yeah, things sounded a bit more natural.
So that that makes me cry. The message from you from your for your dad makes me cry, but in Japanese, and I helped you for correcting.
Hmm.
But so you did it, and how did you feel? Like to you talk that to your dad basically on the wind phone. How was the
Yeah,
experience?
um, I would say it was one of the most, I think, profound experiences of my life.
Mm,
Even though I had been looking at the wind phone for 4 days, like 4 entire days, to to set up the shot, it was still a completely different experience once I actually stepped inside of the phone booth, which I didn't do
mm,
until Day of the Dead. The
mm,
rest of the time I was looking at it from the outside. And when you step in, because it's a glass booth, so the sound of the town and the nature around it, it's completely kind of like sucked away, and
mm,
it's completely silent because you're in this glass
mm,
phone booth. Um, and yeah, it's one of those things that I've heard this from other people that have gone to it as well, is
mm,
that like when you first step in, it feels a little bit silly, but once you start having the conversation, it becomes instantly a much more emotional experience.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I think that's I I felt the experience, and because he had passed away
mm,
in 2020, it had been almost 5 years at that point, and
mm,
so uh, it was it was a lot of things that I wanted to tell him, but then once I started talking, I started realizing that, oh, I should update him on this, and then there's
mm.
these other updates, and so it ended up being like a 1 hour conversation that I was in the phone booth,
Oh.
and yeah, I had the whole thing in Japanese, and uh, and yeah, and then eventually I stepped out, and then I went back to the inn that I was staying in for that week,
Mm,
and I remember having this feeling. Uh, it felt very surreal because for the
mm,
last 5 years,
mm,
this has been my goal and this has been the project that has really oriented my life.
mm,
Like everything's been shaped around this.
mm,
And so to have finally completed the step, it was in the moment, it feels like just another moment,
mm,
another like day-to-day moment,
mm,
but I knew that it was something big that I had just done.
mm,
And and I also understand that language learning it's a lifelong process. Like I don't think that
mm,
I am fluent
mm,
yet, but
mm,
I was at least able to get to the point where I can have the full conversation, a full phone call with my dad in Japanese. So
mm,
for the within the scope of the project,
mm,
that's completed, but I still need to, of course, continue learning Japanese because yeah, it really is a lifetime
Mm.
kind of it's more of a practice than a task.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how I feel too. Like learning language is not like immediate thing.
Hmm.
Like learning language is also like a journey and it's a long process. And in the journey, you will meet many people and many things happened. And
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
one of the interesting things.
Absolutely.
うん。そっか。And then you moved to Kyoto, I guess. You went to
Yeah.
Tokyo?
Well, I passed through Tokyo,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I went to Kyoto, and then I was there for 3 months.
But you also met your like relatives in
Yes,
Tokyo.
I did spend a little bit of time with my uncle who lives
Mm-hmm.
in Saitama,
Mm-hmm.
but that was more like I would go there for a day and then come back to Kyoto.
Mm.
Yeah, so there was maybe
So,
like 2 days I spent in the Tokyo area, but
mhm,
in general, I was in Kyoto.
I see. And you have a you have a fun plan in Kyoto, and I helped you for that plan too. But you have a dating, you
Yes,
have a good date. You have a big date was waiting in Kyoto.
yes.
I don't know how much private I should talk.
Oh, it's okay. No, we
Yeah.
we tell everybody the story.
Okay. Okay. It's like a movie, but yeah, you can tell us.
Um, yeah, let's see. So at the same time that I was working on this film and having these experiences of connecting with roots in Kyoto, I didn't realize that this other story was unfolding alongside of that experience, which is that one of my closest friends of the past 12 years, who we've worked on a lot of projects together over the years, and actually, my film started off as like a different kind of project that we came up with together when we were like more at college age. Um, and for me, it became a film, and for her, it became something different. And so I've been studying Japanese and Spanglish as well. And she's been her family is from Taiwan, and so she's been learning Chinese. And so she told me that she had booked a one-way ticket to Taipei and put all of her stuff in storage, told her job that she was going to go to Taiwan. Um, and when I heard that, because I'm really competitive, I decided that like I didn't want to just watch her go to Taiwan and study her family's language and just watch it without doing it myself. And so that's when I booked my flight to Japan, and that's why I finally did it last year. And so um, yeah, and so during that time, oh my God, this is I'm trying to figure out because uh let's see. I'm trying to figure out the best way to tell this within the context of this podcast. Um yeah, basically we realized that we were going to have my first month in Japan was going to line up with her last month in Taiwan. And so we agreed to have a first date. Uh, she told me how she felt as she was leaving for Taiwan, and I felt the same. And so we had our first date. It was 10 days across Taiwan, 10 days across Taiwan and Japan, mostly in Taipei and Kyoto. And and yeah, we are both individually romantic people, and we are also both individually competitive people, and so we were constantly trying to like out romance the other person, and so a lot of the planning was me running around Kyoto and yeah, setting up these plans and learning about these places, and yeah, you were very helpful in showing me a lot of these places that I was able to bring her to. Um, and then
Yeah.
by the end of it, New Year's Eve, we got engaged in Kyoto. And so yeah,
Yay!
all of that was yeah, a very beautiful tie into this experience in Kyoto of I was we were both going to these places that our families were from to kind of connect with the places and make sure that individually our stories were part of these places, but in doing so, we ended up kind of having our own love story that was in these places as well. So now,
Mm.
Taipei was already so meaningful to her and Kyoto was already so meaningful to me. But now because of these experiences, they have even more meaning to us because it's where we had our first date, and it's
Mm.
where we got engaged.
Yeah, congratulations. おめでとう。
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, it's really dramatic. So yeah, I like I said, I met you from around 2020 and
Hmm.
2024 you took my lesson again and
Hmm.
suddenly after that the lesson usually I do lessons, normal lessons, but less our lesson these 5 months was really dramatic. And I help
確かに。
you, yeah, I help you translate the message for your dad, or I help you where is a good place to date with her, or
Yeah, you also recommended the name for our child.
yes.
Yeah. Haruka.
So, you already decided?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. We decided when you told us.
So, yeah, like so romantic and after you for me looking at your story from outside, I feel like after you did what you have to do for your dad, what you want to do for your dad, finished, and like as a gift, you had a
Mm,
blessing in Kyoto, I guess.
mm.
And
Yeah, it does feel like that.
mm, so it was really touching.
Mm,
そっか。So you had a very good time in Kyoto, your original place, and Taipei, her original place,
mhm.
and you got engaged. And now
Yes.
you went back to America and you're living together.
Yes, yes. So we're back in Oakland living together. She was actually living in Seattle before
Mhm,
she went to Taiwan, and
mhm,
so as all of this is happening, we decided we were going to live together in Oakland. So after I got back from Japan,
mhm,
um, she met me in Oakland, and then we flew to Seattle
mhm,
and pulled her stuff out of storage where it had been for like the last half a year about,
mhm,
and then just drove everything in a U-Haul back to California.
mhm,
And yeah, we're living together now. We are engaged. Yeah, we just went to the wedding ring store this morning.
mhm.
And then uh yeah, 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 yeah.
す
Yeah.
ごい。Yeah, so I feel like the moment, like probably from around 2020 or 2019, when when you start thinking like, I want to learn my dad's language and mom's language,
Hmm.
and 5 years, everything is waited for the perfect timing, right?
Mm,
And
確かに。
now, it's wrapped up in a very good timing and everything happens. Suddenly, everything happened at the same time, kind of feeling.
Yeah. Actually, there's one moment in particular that it's not going. So this experience of like me learning my dad's language, there's two short films that I'm making out of it.
Mhm,
But there's one experience in particular,
mhm,
I guess other than my relationship, which was a profound experience that is not going to be either of those films,
mhm,
uh, which is that when I first went to Kyoto, from the Wind Phone, I was
mhm,
staying in a hotel, and yeah, that was before my first date, the 10-day date with my now fiance.
mhm,
And I was in a hotel and we were talking to each other, and that's where we said like we love you for the first time,
mhm,
and shared our feelings about wanting a future together and
mhm,
imagining a wedding and a family and all of that.
mhm,
And I was just in a hotel in Kyoto, and then
mhm,
there was this photo of me and my dad from when I was a kid. That's the first time I ever came to Japan,
mhm,
and he's holding me next to a river, and
mhm,
I was trying to find where that location was.
mhm,
And I try to do it by getting into running. That
mhm,
was like my new form of exercise when I was living in Kyoto.
mhm.
And so I would run the Kamogawa to try to find where that photo was taken. And I kept running because I kept thinking like oh, this isn't quite right, but I think if I just run around that next corner,
うん、
that's the spot. And so I kept running until my body just like wouldn't run anymore.
う
I ran
ん、
about 12 miles, and then and I'm not like in running condition. I'm not a runner. It's my first time running, and so
うん、
I basically ran until my body gave up,
うん、
and I just like crawled to the nearest train station, which I kind of recognized the nearest train station. It was Tambabashi-eki.
うん、
And so I was like, this is the closest one. And so I like crawl there. Like I was literally crawling across town because my body had completely like I had exhausted it.
うん、
Um, and then yeah, you were giving me the tours, the
う
various
ん、
Kyoto tours, and one of them, it was I think my second to last week or my last week in
うん、
Kyoto, you gave me the sake town tour,
うん、
and taught me about yeah how so much of the sake in Japan is made in Kyoto and how it's different from the other sake that's made and how there's this sake town where all these breweries are and on the last week,
うん、
it was one of the last days in Japan at the end of my 3 months.
うん、
I went to the house that my dad grew up in.
うん、
I got the address from my uncle, and it was a parking lot now, so there's nothing really to see, but I just wanted to go to the place.
うん、
And I sat there for a little bit, and then because it's a parking lot and there's a business next to it that uses the space, I didn't want to hang out there for too long. So I decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. And I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to see the neighborhood that my dad probably walked around a bunch of times when he was a
う
kid.
ん、
And so I was walking and I turned a corner and I saw this this old Japanese roof,
うん、
and in behind it were these giant like the brewery silver I forget what they're called, like the giant tanks that have
う
all the
ん、
alcohol in it. And I thought it looked really interesting to have that uh the giant industrial
うん、
composition in front behind the really ancient Japanese tiling. And so I took a
うん、
picture of that.
うん、
And then I turned the corner and I was like, oh, I know this street. This is the street that when I went for that run,
うん、
I dragged myself through and and then I realized also that at the next corner,
うん、
that I was in Sake Town where you and I
うん、
had done this tour.
うん、
Uh, and then I looked down the street and I realized that it was the same hotel that I was in when my fiance and I said we loved each other for the first time.
う
And so
ん、
uh, and so all of those coincidences, they only happened because I spent so much time in Japan
う
learning all
ん、
of this information and planting all these memories along the way. And I didn't realize that all of these things were happening in the same place.
う
And
ん、
so, and it's kind of a crazy coincidence because, for example, with the run,
うん、
had my body stopped a little bit sooner or a little bit later,
う
I
ん、
would have ended up closer to a different train station.
う
So
ん、
it's kind of crazy that I ended up that that's exactly where my body stopped and that I had to drag my body across what I didn't realize at that time, but was my dad's neighborhood that he grew up in. And
う
then same with like the
ん、
hotel that I was in. I didn't realize it was like right around the corner.
う
And that
ん、
when you and I were in the Sake Town,
うん、
doing the Sake Town tour,
う
I didn't
ん、
realize that that neighborhood that my dad grew up in was in Sake Town, and it was also where I was confessing my love to my fiance for the
うん、
first time,
うん、
and where I my body like forced myself to like drag through,
うん、
and that's one of those things that I only had that moment at the end of my 3 months, and I wouldn't have had that had I not spent all that time
う
in Kyoto. And especially because it's not like that's not in downtown Kyoto where it's
No.
likely that a lot of these things would have happened.
Mhm.
It's kind of out of the way, and so it's especially crazy that
Mm.
that all of these things happen to cross over in the same neighborhood.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely your dad guides you to
Mm-mm-mm.
that place. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for you, especially Kyoto and especially like Fushimi or Tambabashi area, it's a
Mm-mm.
special place for you.
Yes, yeah, that's the neighborhood they're
Mm.
from.
Interesting. And uh, it's a little bit, I changed the topic, but the of course you take my lessons and we talk a lot and you talk me about your dad's story. But one of the reasons we start this dig a little bit deeper is because we had a little bit negative thing happened at the end
Oh,
of 2014.
yes.
And I don't know, I should talk, but without saying this one, it's a little bit difficult to to ask other questions. So I will talk about it. But at the end of 2014, after you finish your first date to your fiance, we and she went back to Taiwan, and before she come
Hmm.
back again, we were walking around Gion area, and I
Hmm.
was saying like, oh, this area is romantic, so you can bring your fiance to this area, and we are walking. But
Hmm.
some tourists are so noisy, and I was already irritated. The Gion area usually very, very beautiful, romantic at evening, and red like lantern and beautiful streets. But some tourists are running around, so I was a little bit angry. But one of the Chinese tourists probably are smoking in front of the historical 100 years old houses. And the houses are made by wood. So, and of course, Kyoto City banned smoking on the street. So I told him like, oh, please don't smoke. And he replied to me in Japanese and not your business kind of thing. So makes me angry. And then I replied to him like, no, this is not a smoking area, and we argue a little bit. And
Hmm.
then at the end, he blew the smoke in front of your face, and then he went and make make us very, very angry, upset, and uncomfortable. So we couldn't go back without, talking. So we
Hmm.
went to my favorite bars, and we talked a little bit, but the experience was the experience itself was a little bit negative, but I think you told me that the experience makes you understand Kyoto a little bit deeper, or I don't know how was the experience?
Yeah, it was also that was one of the most important experiences that I had in Kyoto.
Mhm,
And in the moment, I wouldn't describe it as a pleasant experience, but it was
mhm,
still important to have that experience because I really learned a lot
mhm,
because up until that point, I had been hearing a lot of people in Japan using this phrase over tourism,
mhm,
which I interpreted that as crowding, like
mhm,
too many people are
mhm,
present.
mhm,
But when I saw that and you described it as over tourism, I understood that the specific issue is that there's a lot of tourists that are
mhm,
in Japan
mhm,
and not respecting the just Japan itself.
mhm,
And especially in this example in Kyoto, where there's people that are smoking in these alleyways where it's just these ancient wooden buildings that are all right next to each other.
mhm,
And learning about how in the past there have been fires that have been started occasionally by somebody tossing a cigarette and it burns down entire neighborhoods because part of it is that the fire spreads so quickly, but the other challenge is that because of the these buildings were these neighborhoods were constructed like centuries ago,
mhm,
and so there weren't fire trucks at that point, and so a lot of these alleyways are too small for a fire truck to fit through, and so even if
mhm,
there is a fire that's spreading quickly,
mhm,
on top of that, it's hard to put out the fire, and so that's one of the moments that I understood what Japanese people mean when they talk about over tourism and why it's
mhm,
such a big deal, and that
mhm,
it's more of an issue of like desecration or disrespect
mhm.
beyond just there being too many people.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and I noticed that, yeah, like I felt very angry in that moment, but
Mhm,
also that feeling of kind of like outrage and protection that I felt
mhm,
for Kyoto was a sign of how much I had come to love the place by
mhm,
spending that time there
mhm,
because I think you can see something like that in a place and you might get annoyed about the person, but
mhm,
to feel it to the degree that I felt it to, and
mhm,
I was only there for like maybe a month or two by that point, but it was still enough
mhm.
time to like really feel protective over there over the place. And so
Mm,
that it was a an important moment for me because even though it wasn't an enjoyable experience, it did show
mm,
me how much I had grown to care about Kyoto.
mm. Yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, that wooden house, the historical treasure, is not mine, but still, I guided the area for like more than 6 years or so, and I
Hmm.
get to come there often. And the area, some movies or TV shows, they shoot it because it's really beautiful. So watching some tourists smoking in front of the wooden historical beautiful buildings makes me angry. And also, he didn't say. I expected he said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and finished smoking, but he didn't. He argued to me, so like that kind of attitude is なんていうかな it's not like you said, it's not over tourism, it's not just so many people, it's just makes us angry is disrespectful for our treasures
Hmm.
or rude for our treasures. And I also realize how much I love that area,
Mm.
but that kind of conversation makes us speak more deeply about things. And I think at that moment, 3 months stay in Kyoto, probably not too long, but not too short.
Hmm.
So you stay here not as a tourist, but also as a you feel you're living as a resident as well. So I think that's the reason why you start collecting trash at the Kamo River. You start cleaning Kamo River,
Mm.
which is makes me so surprised because I did it before. I think, I don't know, I don't remember. It was quite a long ago, but sometimes we have that kind of activities, like volunteer activities that we clean the Kamogawa, Kamo River.
Hmm.
And of course, Kyoto City also pays some money and professional people clean the Kamo River, but some people voluntarily cleaning the Kamo River. Kamo River is probably people who don't know Kamo River. It's one of the most representative river in which goes in central Kyoto city, and it's
Hmm.
really beautiful scenery. But after that kind of thing happens, negative thing happen, you start cleaning Kamo River, and I want to know why and how why you start doing that.
Yeah, the Kamogawa is I think anyone that visits Kyoto, the Kamogawa is it's usually one of their favorite places.
Mm,
It's a really beautiful walk, and for me, it was essentially my commute because
mm,
I would walk along the Kamogawa to get into downtown Kyoto, and
mm,
so pretty much every day I was walking along the river to get into town, and then walking back in the evening, walking along the river, and yeah, it's such a beautiful river, and I noticed over time that
mm,
there was a lot of trash, like litter in the
mm,
river.
mm,
And after that experience with that tourist who was yeah blowing the smoke in our face and smoking where he wasn't supposed to be,
mm,
uh, I was learning more about yeah just the challenges of over tourism in places like Kyoto especially.
mm,
And I was thinking about how much Kyoto gave to me and how much I appreciated and how
mm,
much I received from Kyoto
mm,
that I didn't. I was trying to think like what would be what's something I can do that would be in the opposite direction of the tourists that come um
mm,
and damage Kyoto because
mm,
to it's to me it felt like it's not enough to just not damage Kyoto
mhm,
because if a lot of people are not damaging Kyoto, but then there's some people that are damaging Kyoto, then it's
mm,
still Kyoto's still being damaged. But like really to counteract that, the a better solution would be if there's a way that some of the tourists could be doing good for Kyoto, and then
mm,
hopefully that like helps to balance it out at least a little bit more. And so
mm,
I was trying to think of what I can do, and uh, yeah, the Kamogawa was like an easy thing that I realized that when I walk the Kamogawa, I can just pick up trash along the way.
Mm.
And uh, it's not the same as saving like a neighborhood that's like hundreds or 1,000 years old, but
Mm.
it was at least something that felt like a little bit helpful and like a small way that I can show my appreciation for everything that
Mm.
Kyoto gave to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really respect your action and also thank you for doing that as a resident of Kyoto. Yeah, like I said, I really like Kamogawa. So when I move, I always try to live near Kamogawa so I can
Mm,
enjoy. Even I
hmm.
don't live in a big house, big garden. If I live near Kamogawa, I feel like this is our garden, our
Yeah,
beautiful yard. So yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like Kamogawa. So thank you so much for doing that. Yeah. Okay, so so now you spend 3 months in Kyoto, and how long does it take after you went back to the US? About 1 month or more, 2 months?
Yeah, I came back on February 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and then I spent yeah, so it's been about a week or a month and a half.
Mm. So looking back the days in Japan, how did you feel now? How do you feel
It
now? Mm.
I think having so many special moments on the last week in particular
Mm.
uh were really great because even though I'm mentioning the highlights, it was
Mm.
also very lonely at times to be separated. I was like I missed my friends and my
Mm.
work and my community
Mm.
in California. And so to
Mm.
be away for 3 months, it was very difficult in a lot of ways, even though it was also very beautiful and fulfilling in other ways.
Mm.
Um, but I think having those experiences, so many big experiences, I mentioned one of them on the final week of, all those coincidences on that one
Mm.
neighborhood corner.
Mm.
There's moments like that that made me, that reminded me that I had to spend that much time there in order to have have those payoffs in the end because
Mm.
I could have gone for less time and it would have been easier.
Mm.
But then there's so many moments that wouldn't have happened. And to have so many memories of Kyoto, and I think, to be able to walk around without needing to GPS and just to know where things are,
Mm.
and to have memories around Kyoto, that's like a very special and invaluable thing. And so, yeah, it was a lot of things. Like um,
Mm.
it was like very beautiful and also hard, but it was very life-changing. And
Mm.
yeah, I think I'm just so thankful that I got to have so much time there. And
Mm.
I plan to keep going back. I would
Mm.
love to go back once a year.
Mm.
I don't know if I'll be able to do 3 months again like that, but yeah, it was definitely a very special experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The lucky thing is your fiance and your Taiwan, Japan is so close, so you can visit two places at the same time.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, well, that was convenient.
Hmm.
ね、そっか、so you want to come to Japan and Taiwan once a year or so? And
Yeah, I would love to keep going back at least once a year because for
mm,
me it's important that
mm,
Kyoto not just be a place that I go to as like a vacation, but
mm,
I want it to be a part of my life. And so
mm,
um yeah, whether it's like staying in contact with you or even the
mm,
way that like you and I are starting to discuss business together, the ways that I
mm,
can keep myself attached to Kyoto in a
mm,
way that
mm,
feels more it's
mm,
like when things like work and other things are involved, it just becomes a part of your life in a way that feels different than like choosing to go there for vacation. But then it's kind of
mm,
like it's an optional part of my life. I want it to be a more essential part of my life.
mm. Yeah, yeah, I have address, so you can say I have a Kyoto branch office.
Mm, 確かに。
And you can use my address, and I will
Yeah.
say I have a branch office in Auckland.
Yeah, you
And I
can do
will
that.
use, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, of course we can do business together. And we are doing some lesson for Japanese taxi driver in Kyoto right now and helping him because
Yeah.
he's a normal Japanese taxi driver, but recently we have so many tourists, so he wants to improve his English skill, which is really great. And yeah, luckily we had one first customer. So
Hmm.
well, we just start doing lesson only for one gentleman, but in the future we want to do more, something,
Yeah.
something more. Yeah.
I mean that's also been a special moment is I took my first lesson with
Mm.
you
Mm-hmm.
about 5 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
then you helped me so much with my experience at the Wind Phone, and then
Mm-hmm.
helping me learn and feel at home in Kyoto, and just
Mm.
really understanding the place and helping make Kyoto such an important part of my story.
Mm.
And so now it's really surreal to be teaching the lessons with you when I
Oh,
started off as your student.
thank you so much. Yeah, yeah. From the conversation from you, we thought like, because I was helping to find you accommodation or
Hmm.
the co-working space in Kyoto, but you kindly said that, oh, you can do it as a business. So
Hmm.
from this year, I was started to put my title not only online Japanese teacher and tour guide or coordinator in Kyoto, but also I started to put Kyoto Tokyo stay coordinator. I don't
Mm.
know if there's a better way to say, but like basically I want to say like especially for digital nomads or people
Hmm.
who want to stay Japan like 1 month or 3 months or 6 months, a little bit longer than other tourists. I want to help them not just accommodation, food, dining, but also co-working space and where is a good place to go or tours and these kind of all the services. I want to help them all of these kind of things. And
Yeah. Mm.
for now, I'm calling like a one-chan service, like a
Yes.
big sister service. But
Yes, yes.
yeah, hopefully, I want to think about like you can help me.
Yeah, I mean, you really
Mm.
were my own Esan in Kyoto. And that was so essential because I think without you, I would have been, doing what most people do, which is stay in Airbnbs and maybe go to a couple restaurants that they find online. But you were able to help kind of change and take it beyond that, where you were able to help find me my co-working space, help me find restaurants that I liked, places that were beautiful to spend time in, to go on, to go for my date, um, and just like really understand and connect with the place in a way that it it, it felt more than just visiting a place. Like I feel like I really understood and feel connected to Kyoto, even though it was only 3 months. But um, I feel so much more connected to Kyoto because of you than had I just gone and like stayed in the Airbnb and try to find things online.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I had a good 3 months too when you were
Mm,
staying here because, you know, we went to, I think we went, first we went to my Maiko tour, like a
hmm.
geisha apprentice tour.
Hmm.
And then we went to Ritz-Carlton charity breakfast.
Yeah.
And we went to a vegan ramen restaurant, which my
Uh,
friend
oh yes.
recommended.
Hmm.
Vegan ramen, vegan izakaya restaurant we went.
Yeah, the vegan izakaya.
Yeah, and we had a trouble, and we went to two bars, and then New Year comes, and then I met your fiance,
Hmm.
and
We did the
you
sake tour.
we did sake tour, and you invite me to the vegan ramen restaurant. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I had a good time too. Like,
Yeah, me too.
mm, mm,
Oh,
mm.
and then we went to the temple too for
Temple.
New Year's meal.
Yes, yes, yes. I miss it. Yes, New Year's meal. Yes, you're vegan usually, but I invited you to the normal Japanese New Year food, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you enjoyed eating it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that one was like a special situation, and that was
Mm.
such a such a beautiful experience to be able to eat at that temple for New Year's.
Yeah. I think that attitude is really good,
Mm,
especially when you are traveling, and especially you live in a different place. You want to do your new experience more than
hmm
your daily habits.
hmm
Yeah. So I'm glad, you had a very meaningful, life-changing 3 months in Japan, especially in
Mm.
Kyoto. Yeah.
Me too. I had no
Mm.
idea how profound of an experience it would be in so many different ways.
Mm. I think I heard, I heard many people's story, like how they spend in Japan for, sometimes 1 week, 1 month, or a year or so. But your story is one of the most dramatic one.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there was probably those 3 months were probably more dramatic than like probably any other 3 months of my life.
Mm. But why don't you make that? I mean, you're already making the documentary, but in your documentary, we can see the story.
確か
Yeah.
に.
When it's done, when we can see it.
So there's two main documentaries I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
One is titled Omiyage, and that one will be completed by the end of this year. And then
Mm-hmm.
Mixed Feelings, which is the one about the wind phone, that one should be completed by the end of next year.
Okay. So next year, so next time you come, hopefully, at least one of the documentary done, so that we
Yeah.
can have an event that see it together or something.
Yeah, I would love that.
うん。ね、that would be fun.
Mm.
うん。So we can rent some space and I want to see that documentary.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
うん。いいですね。
Mm.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your story, Akira さん。
Yeah. Thank you for everything.
うん。
From the first italki lesson until now and everything that is
ね、
still has not happened yet.
I mean, even me, I didn't expect it, this kind of, I involved this kind of life story when I started teaching Japanese. But yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So yes, and we keep talking, but for this podcast, I will finish now. So thank you so much for listening. じゃあ、ありがとうございます、あきらさん。じゃあ、一旦録音消します。I will stop the recording now. So just a moment, please.
はい。